Oh, yep. Okay.
So kind of a little bit all over the place in the moment, but super happy to talk to
Sure.
you. And I'm glad that you accepted the invite to come back.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting time to be thinking about the nervous system. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's it like? I have nothing planned out. I really wanted to kind of be in the moment with you and chat. There's a couple points that we're probably going to touch upon, but
Hmm.
I'm wondering,
Sure.
like, everyone seems to just love you. Everyone
Oh,
everyone that listens to you, they say, "Oh, she's the best. I went to her training. She's the best," and they love being around you. What's it like to just be admired throughout the world? It seems.
yeah. I don't, I kind of don't take that in. You know
I
what I
figured you
do is
wouldn't.
I absolutely love getting emails from people who tell me their experience using, it's usually around using the map, and they'll tell me, and I love to email them back and say, thanks for letting me know, because you don't hear those
Yeah,
things. And it's fun to see how your work is being used out in the world. But other than that, people will say things, and I say, it's ventral. This is ventral vagal energy that is the medium by which I'm connecting with you. And so everybody can do this. I mean, I get that
yeah.
I'm a good therapist and I do some therapist things really well, but it's ventral vagal energy that is really the active ingredient here.
I like that you said that you're a good therapist. I don't think a lot of us say that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
Well, we
don't,
should.
but I don't
You
know if
don't think
it's. Say it again.
no, you don't own that you're good at
Oh, I think I'm a good
that?
therapist.
Good. Yeah.
I'm okay with that, but I don't know if that's in our field, if that's okay to say, hey, I'm good at
Yeah,
this, you know.
I know.
But yeah, and I'm very confident in what I do.
So interesting, because if I go to a therapist, I want to go to a therapist who says, yes, I'm good at this and I know how to help you with this. I don't want to go to somebody who says, oh, yeah, yeah, no, tell me you're good, please, because then I might trust you, right?
Really,
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I prefer someone who is confident in what they do, and we are providing a service. So why
Yeah.
can't we take a little confidence in that?
There was a study that said that warmth is the first quality that clients look for, but confidence is the next. It's like, not arrogance, but confidence, because
Yeah,
I'm going to lead you on a journey to a place that you have not wanted to go and don't know how to go safely. So I better be a really good guide who you can trust.
outstanding. If you hear my
Yeah.
kids in the background, that's them probably fighting over
I love it.
cereal.
You know, If you have to go and referee the
Thank
cereal,
you.
that's okay.
I'm going to trust that
Handle
my 10-year-old can handle the situation with her little brother. She just got up, so right off the bat, they're
handle
fighting
the
over
Fruit
cereal.
Loops.
Yeah, 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 pretty much.
Yeah.
So you have a second book about to come out. I want to say April 21st. Is that right?
Yeah, it's supposed to come out the 21st, which is kind of exciting, and it's an interesting time for it to come out because it is
Right.
exercises for people to do between sessions. And so it's kind of the perfect timing because what everybody's looking for now is, what do I do to feel some management over my life? Right. And
Yeah.
so if as a therapist, I can say, let's do this, and then you go do this for the next week before we come back again, it gives you a way to feel like you're doing something, you're shaping something, you're actively controlling something. It's really even more helpful now than it was when I wrote the thing. So yeah.
How is this different than? Well, the first one I guess was for therapists and was
Yeah.
directly in the session. This is between session now.
Yes.
You're covering all
Yeah.
your bases.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I found that you really can't reshape a nervous system efficiently 1 hour a week,
Mm.
right? You need to give clients homework, and then people were asking me for the homework I was giving, and I thought, wow, I have a whole series of things that I do. I should put them in some sort of format that makes sense to
Ah.
people, and then came this. I like acronyms, like many people in our field. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
basic: befriend, attend, shape, integrate, connect. So it's those
Friend.
categories that you move through.
Friend. Attend. Say it again.
Befriend,
Befriend.
befriend,
Attend.
attend, shape, integrate, connect.
Okay. So these are ways
So
to kind of boost that between sessions then?
yep, yep, yeah.
With the so you give homework to clients, of course. Is that you have a set sort of thing, or you just is it per client? Let's what works for you
Well,
per client, or what works for each
the,
client?
the book really written so that you would go through it in order because the exercises build on each other.
Oh, interesting.
But I've also found that, I have a client who's in a certain place in their recovery, shaping process. And, that exercise would work great. So you can take them out of order when the client presents with, this would be perfect for that client. And then the hope is that as you go through all of the exercises, that clients will pick the ones that really resonate for them and begin to create a set of practices that they then return to over and over and over, because they're not one and done kind of things.
So not just the 1 hour therapy session. How much do you think? 'Cause I know people are going to wonder, like, well, how much? How much is homework? How much am I supposed to do this every day? So is there thoughts there on like how much?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's the perfect polyvagal question, right? Because, you and I are going to practice this little thing in session, and then I'm going to say, so if you were going to use this between now and the time you come back, how would we like to do this? How often? What time of day? What do you think? And being the compliant client who wants to get it right, you're going to say, I'm going to do it twice a day. And I'm going to say, okay, so your brain just answered that question. And now let's ask your nervous system. So I'm going to say to you, I'm going to do it every day, twice a day. And how does your nervous system respond to that statement? And your nervous system is going to go, no, right? Probably. And so we're going to have a conversation with the nervous system instead of the brain, saying, so what feels like it would be reasonable and doable for your nervous system? And some, clients often start at every day and they end up with twice a week. Great, perfect. Because the goal of this is to have the nervous system buy in and say, this is what I can do. Perfect. So it's about having some success, right?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go check with my kids real quick. But what I want to know is that what's the line between let's have success, but also let's challenge ourselves and maybe take it a step further than might be super comfortable. Do you mind if I come back real quick?
I will hold that thought.
Thank you. Hey, you guys, I love you tremendously. Can you please keep it down? Thank you. Love you. Bye-bye. Love you too. All right. Sorry.
No problem. I love it. I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, 2 granddaughters who live in Chicagoland, and they will FaceTime me many times a day when they need somebody besides their mom or dad to talk. It's so sweet, just so sweet. So I absolutely get the going off to referee breakfast. Yeah.
Well, now it's refereeing TV, but I think they're square. They pretty much do a good job with like picking something they can watch together. So they do a pretty good job of that.
I love it.
Yeah. We got that down, I think. So, but we're all set.
So to go back to that question, which is the perfect question, because I have this line I use that we want to stretch the nervous system and then savor what we've stretched so that it becomes more patterned. And then as soon as you cross midline, you're going to go to stress and survive. So we have to stay on the left-hand side of that line into the stretch and savor and not challenge the nervous system so much that it goes into a stress response and a survival response. Because once you go to survival, to sympathetic or dorsal, any possibility of change shuts down.
All right, so I'm going to come at this from a listener, and I'm going to come at this from someone who's going to say, well, how do I do that, and what's too much, and all those evaluative, probably more sympathetic questions. And I don't know if this is giving away too much from the book, but do you mind going into that? Well, what is too much? How would someone know if they're doing too much? Are these even safe to do outside of therapy? All these questions, I'm sure people are like, well,
So, and again, all of these exercises or anything we're doing when it comes to the nervous system nowadays is based on the premise that you and I, or my client and I, have mapped their nervous system so that my client has an idea of how their 3 states work and can understand, I'm really anchored in ventral right now, or I'm losing my anchor and I'm falling into sympathetic or dorsal. So you really can't do any of these things safely or efficiently effectively until we start from that place of, so how is your nervous system wired, and how do we track where you are and what's happening? So that's kind of the foundational piece.
There has to be some level of like understanding, and just the map, just sort of what that looks like and what that feels like before launching into it.
You know, for me, I always do that first personal profile map. That's from the first book with every client, and I've been doing that with many people recently in this time we're in, because if you don't know your nervous system in a basic way, you're going to feel lost. You're not going to understand why you're 1 minute thinking I have to get out of here, and I can't. If I have to teach math one more time to my kids, I'm going to strangle myself. Or you go to the bedroom and just stay under the covers and don't get out of your pajamas for 4 days, and you aren't going to understand that in any way except some story that your brain is going to give you. So if we can have a basic understanding of the nervous system, then we don't just get that brain cognitive narrative. We get the biology of what's going on. And then we can do something to shift our biology rather than getting stuck in the story.
Like we won't just focus on the actual thoughts or the stories, but we can focus on more of the whole experience of what we're going through.
Right. And then once we know, if I'm in sympathetic and I'm flooded with that mobilizing fight flight energy, then, there's a general pattern to follow to do something with that. You do some kind of organized movement, organized being the key word there, not just movement, because fight flight's going to the chaotic, movement. An organized movement, go for a walk, dance, sing out loud, something, right? Yeah. And again, what I'm asking people to do nowadays, and it's interesting to think about anytime, but especially now, because we're getting all of these suggestions in our inbox and through social media about how to survive, what to do, right? And some of them work for me, and some of them absolutely don't work for me. And so my job nowadays is to discern out of all of these suggestions, which are the ones that my nervous system either says yes to or maybe. And so the three categories are yes, no, maybe. And if I look at this, say it's a breathing experience, because there have been a lot of those coming into my inbox recently. And if I look at that and I think about it, I think about doing it, my nervous system goes, no, it does not go on my menu. If my nervous system says yes, absolutely, it's on the menu. If it says maybe, it goes in another part of the menu where I might try it out, right? And I really am encouraging people to create an actual menu. This is my menu of pathways to regulation. And I'm putting everything on it from these amazing suggestions that my nervous system says yes or maybe to. Not that the person who's sending me it said, because as soon as we take somebody else's suggestion and make it a protocol for ourselves, we're no longer listening to our nervous system.
People ask, like, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know you, so I don't know. I feel like it's irresponsible to say, oh yeah, just do this sort of breathing, or take a cold shower, or go for a run. Like, I have no idea what responds to you. And that's been coming up a lot, and especially the interviews that I'm doing with others, is the importance of the present moment and mindfully doing these things. Do you agree that, and it sounds like you're kind of saying that it's not just movement, but it's in the present moment movement. Is that accurate to say for you as well?
Yes, and the question would be, in this moment, in this place where what I'm feeling right now, what will help me move towards ventral, or what would help me really stay in ventral? And again, you're asking your own nervous system. And for some days, for me, I might want to go stand on my deck and look out into the backyard. And other days, that has no appeal to my nervous system at all. Right. So it's an ongoing conversation with my nervous system. And when we're working with clients or other people in our lives, it's an ongoing conversation with another nervous system. It's not a set, here's what you do. It's let's think. If somebody asked you the question, what do I do? You say, well, let me give you a few choices and see how your nervous system responds, because that'll give us a clue. So
all that requires that you're in the present moment, though, doesn't it, to sort of look inward and to notice? And I guess having the map and having some level of education, but also practice with this. But you have to kind of look inward and say, that what does feel right in this moment? Like, what does feel like my system wants to do or not do?
Yeah, and the in the moment's tough because as soon as we get pulled into sympathetic or dorsal, we're no longer in the moment. We're in a fear and anxiety, or we're in a disappearing. So again, what we need to do is to pre-plan for this, to be proactive. So when you are feeling a bit, I think I'm okay, for the next 10 minutes, that's the time to begin to make your menu. Because then it's done and you put it somewhere where you know where it is, so that when you feel your system beginning to take you away from that, you just have to go look at this piece of paper that you've already created your menu. Yeah. When you dysregulate, your prefrontal cortex does not go along for the ride with you, right? So you need to have this already done so that, I can read, I can look at that, but I can't come up with solutions when I'm there.
Yeah. I love that you went there, because people wait for the crisis to do these grounding skills, but I'm like, no, we're practicing being in the present moment. Do this before the crisis, when there's not, when it's not quote unquote too late. I don't know if it's too late, but it's a lot less difficult. That's when we should be practicing these things, so that when the crisis does hit, we have some practice, we have some experience, we know what to do, we can go to the list or whatever it is. But people wait till the crisis, right?
Yeah. And nowadays, I think people are just trying to make it through moment to moment, day to day. Yeah. And it's harder the longer this goes on. And what's happening is the unpredictability is really difficult. The feeling of unendingness is difficult. Yeah. And for the nervous system, we probably talked about this before, but there are these three elements the nervous system really looks for to safely navigate the world: context, choice, and connection. And if you think about those, each of those are being terribly challenged right now, right? Context, we don't have enough context because nobody understands this virus. Nobody understands what's happening. We don't have a lot of choice. Our choice is really restricted about what we can do and who we can see and how we can do it. Even if you think about choice, even if you go to the grocery store, there's a lot less choice about what you can get there even. Yeah. So choice in all sorts of ways is restricted. Yeah. And then connection. We are trying so hard to find ways to connect nervous system to nervous system, which is an essential biological need for we humans, without actually being, for many people, without being in space with somebody. Yeah. Or for many people, they're in a space with people they now can't get away from. Yeah. So connection is challenged in that way too. When I can't, because connection is about connection to myself, right, and to others, and to nature and to spirit. And so those context, choice, and connection is just being really challenged right now. And as that's challenged, we find it hard to find an anchor in ventral.
Right. So what are you left with if you don't have choice, if you don't have connection? If you don't have context, what are you left with?
Yeah, well, then we have to get creative about, looking at choice, right? Say, I don't have the choice I had 4 weeks ago. Are there ways that I can have choice now? Which is, again, comes back to when the recommendations come into your inbox, you don't have to take them. Right. Right. You have choice about what you use and what you don't use. You have choice about how you want today to find some ventral moments, right? Connection. We are getting creative with connection, right? This face to face, even though we're not together. Of course, you and I have actually never met. We've only met this way. Right. So for us, this is like, I feel there with you. Yeah. And I loved it. I had to go and rescue your kids from the cereal war or whatever. It was like, this is human, right? We're here together. It's lovely finding ways to do this, and you look at the ways people are being creative about standing outside on their balconies and, talking across the street, or we are creative human beings. We'll find a way.
Well, I'm assuming people who go to the gym daily, they probably have to get pretty darn creative about how they, get connected with others, but also how they physically move around. I would assume, this just the digital medium has become, I think, a lot more important. Yes. And probably feeds into that creativity.
And it's interesting because I've always thought that remote connection, digital connection, has its place, right? I've always thought that for some of us, this is a much safer way of connecting than being in a room together face to face. For some clients, this is an easier way to go deeper because it feels a little bit safer.
Yeah.
So, we're going to get creative about how we use this. And I think some of this may stay with us when we even come back to be able to.
I really wonder if there will be, and this is a global thing, so there's an opportunity for an entire generation collectively to come out of this and, I don't know, have some different viewpoints or understandings of how maybe even reconnect with each other in a much deeper way or a more safe way, more appreciative way. I don't know. There's really like an opportunity here amongst all the chaos.
I agree. I think there's a huge opportunity right now. And I loved what you just said in a more, appreciative way. I think, as things are so restricted, we do become more appreciating of certain small things and certain ways of being together that we, aren't feeling now. And hopefully we'll go back to doing them in deeper ways.
I so miss being with my coworkers, but not before. When I was at work, I would go to great lengths to avoid them because I do that very well. I would bring my own lunch with ice packs in it so I didn't have to go to the refrigerator to interact with people. But now I'm like, I wish I had the opportunity to avoid people at work all over again because now I'm just stuck at home. I really, those interactions I appreciate so much more now.
And you're getting to know your, what I call social engagement scale, that some of us are very much in the, I need to be with people all the time. And others of us are more in the, I like a lot of solitude and I also need to be with people. And we all are on that continuum somewhere. And for people for whom, maybe like you and like me, solitude is more nourishing. And so I don't need to be around people so much. This is an easier time for me. For people whose social engagement system really needs lots of connection with people, this is a much more difficult time. So, again, we're seeing the nervous system in its different ways of still being in social engagement, but in different ways.
Yeah, I feel like I've had my alone time. I'm good. Now I'm ready to go socialize, and I got the same 3 people day in, day out, who I love to death. But the importance of friendship and being with people is definitely. I know for me, I appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah. So you'll take that back with you when we all head out back in the world again. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say before we move on, it's interesting to think how might we hang on to this, right? Because you said, yes, I'm definitely taking this with me. And then the invitation is to figure out how are you going to remember this a year from now, right? Because we humans just kind of go back to whatever. So it would be interesting to think about a way to really, mark what the new knowings are for each of us and have a record of those to take with us.
I know for me, like right now, I'm talking to another adult. This is the best thing for me right now. When I go to the store, those brief moments where I'm going to go in and grab whatever we need, I'm highly aware that I'm able to smile at people and receive their eye contact and just those simple little moments. And it's balanced out by the fact that we're all keeping our distance. And, you can see this concentrated effort to stay away from people. Yeah. Where before we all invaded each other's space, which was annoying. Right. But now there's this feeling, this danger cue of like, oh, back off, and everyone's covering their face. And so there's all that, but I can see people's eyes, I can see them squint, I can hear their voice, and I know when I go out, I soak that in like a sponge.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting how people can be both a cue of danger and a longing for connection at the same time, right?
Yeah, definitely.
The cue of danger is, don't come too close, don't breathe on me, don't, that there's this, sort of unspoken, unseen thing that's going around. And, oh, by the way, I love looking at your eyes and hearing your voice because that makes me feel connected. Yeah.
I want to take a hard right turn here. There's a topic that came up on my podcast that was fun but controversial. And it's the idea of introversion and extroversion, or ambiversion, which is the mix, I guess, and how that might relate to the polyvagal theory. This really stimulated people's thoughts, and a lot of people reached out to me about, because I was wondering, I wasn't making a firm argument, but I was wondering, with introverts, could there possibly be a little bit of shutdown or a little bit of dorsal activity there? Not a full-on dissociative shutdown, but could that be underlying introversion? And then same thing with people who are more extroverts. Could there be some sympathetic but also ventral activity there that's driving them? So I'm wondering, like, could that stuff be underneath these other labels that we use? You know?
Yeah, it's such fun to think about, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah,
through the biology of the nervous system.
Right.
So I have a couple thoughts, and one really is around that social engagement scale that we just talked about, which is actually an exercise in the new book, because for many clients, when they are in a group of people and aren't actively engaging with that group, in the beginning they think, oh, I must be in dorsal because I'm not connected.
Right.
And so the social engagement skill was built as a way for people to really get a sense of, where am I? Am I just enjoying? So it's a scale that you name your two ends.
Is that that's in book 2, the social engagement scale? Okay.
So on one end, you would name what, you're highly social. So for me, I might say actively engaged in communicating. And then the other end of my social engagement scale is quietly reflecting. It's all within my ventral vagal safe social engagement, but it's a continuum. And then I mark the points between. So actively engaging, communicating, and then at some point I go to enjoying observing. I go to, active listening. I go to quiet reflecting, but it's all, I'm present fully and there.
Right.
So that's the first piece, is to really understand your own system and how you move along that all the time. So, and then within that, I think some people, as we said, are more shaped to be more on the social, active, engaging, communicating end, and other people on the more solitude, reflecting, quiet end.
Right.
You could then, extrovert, introvert, you can use any labels you want there. I really think and if we think about the vagal brake that I think we talked about before, as the vagal brake releases a bit, I have more sympathetic energy in my system. So I'm more this, which again could be named extrovert. As my vagal brake re-engages and I'm more calm, could be more extrovert. It's just interesting to think of the labels that people could put on, and why I created this engagement scale was because I wanted people to understand that there are many flavors of being in social engagement.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's these categories that people latch onto as if it defines them, like, oh, I am that introvert, period. But polyvagal theory is, well, what's underneath that? And I've been spending the past handful of weeks on my podcast looking at DSM criteria for a number of diagnoses and wondering about what polyvagal implications there are to borderline personality disorder and ADHD, and I've hit a whole bunch of them. But it's not just the name, it's not just the behavior or the category, but there's autonomic stuff happening underneath all that.
Yes, and if you think about the DSM for a moment, if you look at the DSM through the lens of the nervous system, every diagnosis pretty much is an outcome of a dysregulated nervous system.
Right.
It's just dysregulated in a certain way. Yeah. Right. So, I'd be in favor of let's not use DSM diagnosis. Let's just look at in what particular ways is your nervous system dysregulating, and when does it dysregulate in these ways? Because that's really what I want to know. A DSM label does not help me work with your nervous system, right? So, that's where I go with that. And then, extrovert, introvert is a binary thing, or whatever that in between was. I don't know.
Ambivert. I think it's more newer, but ambivert.
Yep. What I think the nervous system shows us, and from a polyvagal lens, is everything is on a continuum. Everything, So I'm not an introvert or an extrovert. I have these moments when my nervous system is really nourished by solitude or by being with one other person in quiet, and other times when it's nourished by being, with a big group of people laughing and dancing. And all of those are me. And I move along that continuum all the time. So for me, it's more helpful to think of continuum than it is to think of category.
Absolutely. What I've noticed with the DSM categories, just breaking them down, is that what's underneath those categories, what's underneath those symptoms, because it's really a behavioral thing in the DSM. What's underneath those, there could be different paths. That could be a freeze thing, it could be a shutdown thing, it could be a sympathetic thing, and just look however it looks on the outside, but internally that person, we don't know. So the DSM doesn't go so far, obviously.
Right. No, the DSM doesn't look at that. And, through a polyvagal lens, when I'm getting to know a client, getting to know their nervous system, part of it is what happened to you, but the more important part is how did your nervous system respond to what happened to you. So, and the DSM is giving you some outcomes of response to events, but it's not asking the important questions about, so how is that shaped inside? And
I think Dr. Porczak, he said that about the ACEs questionnaire also, is that it's based on events and not on responses. Yeah.
And ACE is a wonderful, brilliant survey, and we have great data from it, and need a part 2. The part 2 needs to ask that question, because I could have one ACE and have a very compromised, dysregulated nervous system. Yeah. Or you could have 3 and have a regulated nervous system. So the number of ACEs and what they were doesn't give us that next step. Right. It's a beginning. We just need a part 2.
What I like about polyvagal theory and what it naturally leads us to is that we naturally look inward, and rather than these criteria or numbers or evaluations, we can, you've used the word continuum numerous times, that we can feel this within ourselves, and it gives us a lot of introspection. I don't want to say mastery, because I don't think we're all quite there yet, but it gives us the ability to say, hey, I can figure this out. I can look inward, versus relying on an expert to tell me how I am, who I am, and how I will be in the future.
Right. And that's really my, the line I use with clients, what I use in my teaching now. The reason to bring a polyvagal informed approach to your work is that you want to help your clients become active operators of their own nervous systems. That's our job, is to them understand and have some ability to navigate their states with some sense of ease and grace. Because when a client comes to you, they bring a presenting problem, right? But that presenting problem is really not what I want to work with. I want to work with the nervous system. And then once we get some regulation, we can look at that presenting problem, and it's going to look different, feel different. The client's going to have a lot more, thoughts about what they want to do with it. It's going to have changed because the nervous system is supporting a different way of moving through the world.
I have nothing to add to that. That pretty much wraps it up, right? That thought. What are you hoping that people get from book 2?
I'm hoping that it will become more of polyvagal theory, or this way of being connected to the nervous system will become more of a everyday experience rather than a thing you do for an hour in therapy. That would make me smile to think of people around the world who are finding their own polyvagal informed practices to help them navigate the day, right?
Seems like you're very invested in people learning about themselves and not relying on, and of course therapy has its place, but it seems like not relying on the expert or another.
Absolutely has its place. And what I really want is my clients to be able to understand the nervous system and have skills to come back from sympathetic or dorsal dysregulation, come back what I call home to ventral, because we all leave our home and ventral many times a day. I want people to have the skills to come back, and then also to know when an experience is so intense or so extreme that they want to go to a therapist to have some help with that. Because therapy really is an important addition to the ability to navigate my nervous system and operate my nervous system. There are some things that I need your expert help with, that I can't do on my own, that I really need to come to you for your support when I'm doing it. And the ability to do that is important, to know that I need that and to come get that, and not to do that with all the other things that are happening in my life.
That sounds like such a healthy way to view therapy as a service, as an addition to the work I'm doing, and not the only source or being dependent on the therapist. And it sounds like would that be a more accurate reflection of co-regulation versus dependence? Like, I guess I worry about people becoming dependent on therapy or on the idea of co-regulation. Like, I need another person to do this for me versus along with me, or a service that I'm hiring to do along with me to support me.
Yeah, it's a nice way to put it. And, Steve talked about co-regulation, that when we have enough co-regulation, it builds the platform for us to be able to use self-regulation when the co-regulation isn't available, or we're just choosing to self-regulate. And I think we're really bumping into that right now in this current place, that people are being asked to self-regulate more than in the past. And it gets old after a while. I don't know how many weeks we're in now, but I know
the time is just gone.
We need co-regulation as well. So, to come back to therapy, yes, I want my clients to co-regulate with me and have enough experiences of that so that they can then take that learning outside and self-regulate and come back when they need. They need either a tune-up. Clients will come back for a tune-up, right, which is great, or they come back because there's some crisis in their life and they need some support with that.
So it's more like doses of a co-regulator for me to build my own self-regulation, or for a tune-up toward that end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need enough experiences of safe co-regulation first,
right?
And for many clients, they've missed that. People have been dangerous, and the therapist is taking on that role of being the first safe co-regulator in their life.
Right.
It's going to take longer to get enough for the nervous system to have enough of that predictable co-regulating experience to then be able to say, oh, now I can learn to self-regulate in a way that's nourishing, that's not survival, because they had to self-regulate out of survival. Now I can learn to self-regulate as a choice and as a nourishing experience. So for some people, the co-regulating experiences are going to have to be more numerous, more often. It's going to take longer. And then for other people, a nice shot of co-regulation is going to bring it alive, and off they go. So again, it's a conversation with the nervous system.
When will you be on Instagram and Twitter and all the social media? You don't have accounts, do you?
When will I do not.
You don't, right? Yeah.
I'm totally not on social media. I'm doing I have decided to. Oh, I don't know what I've decided. In the past, I decided to not complicate my life because it feels like a lot of energy going into that.
It is.
Now my next step is into doing some online offerings, because I want to keep sharing my passion with the world, and you can't do it in person now. And so that feels like the next step for me, to create some good online programs for people. So I think social media is still going to stay behind there somewhere. It's just not happening.
It's kind of draining. It can be draining.
I think it is, right?
Yeah.
People will say, "Did you see this thing on Facebook?" I said, "Nope, did not." Nope.
You're not missing out on a whole lot.
Oh, good.
When I use it, I'm basically creating, and I'll put stuff out there, but I haven't created something for Instagram, and it's been a couple of weeks, and I just don't feel the energy to do so. And it's a lot different, and I don't know, I feel a little bit tapped out recently. So I'm still doing the podcast. And that's where my energy's going, and I'm loving that. It just feels right.
Yeah. So you get that reciprocity in a podcast. You get, our nervous systems are having fun together right now. You can feel some of that, which pulls you a bit. Yeah. And this is the way that you have worked anyway. I mean, you're a podcaster, so it's not a replacement for it. It's something you have been doing, which is helpful.
Yeah, this is where it just feels right. So I put my energy into this. And usually I do a solo thing, and every now and then, rarely I'll have somebody come on that just sort of intrigues me and that I want to learn more from. And so it's a way to do that, but it just feels right, using my voice and going in depth into ideas versus posting a picture. It just feels like a good avenue. I like my blog, but then I have my social media. It's just not using as much as I used to. I don't know. It's been a shift there recently.
Yeah, and again, you're listening to your nervous system.
Yeah.
Which is going to tell you, draining or filling.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of what do. It's either a drainer or a filler. It's either going to, nourish me or it's not going to nourish me. And then the question is, so, okay, what's going to nourish me today or in this moment?
Yeah. So for you, creating programs sounds like is your next step. What could you do that's different or new or in addition to what you're already doing?
Well,
or are we keeping that close to the chest for now?
Yeah, I've no. I put out on my website. I'm going to do a book study group for the first book, chapter by chapter. It's a 90-minute each week for 15 weeks, and I'm going to present the concepts for an hour, and then I'm going to do 30 minutes of question and answer, because I think people really can have fun with a book that way. Do the exercises, do the maps, and feels like something that's accessible not only to therapists but to curious human beings or anybody who wants to do that. So I'm doing that, and then I'm going to attempt my part of my long-term training. It's called Foundations 1. Part 1 is going to be a 5-day online, 1 day a month for 5 months, because boy, you can't sit in front of a computer and take stuff in. So 1 day a month with consultation between and small groups and all that sort of stuff that you can brilliantly do on the internet nowadays. So we're going to test it out and see, because for me, this is nourishing teaching, inviting others to this polyvagal family. And I can't do this for 9 months or whatever it's going to be. I need to do this, and people are asking. So we're going to see what happens. I may be asking you for some good ideas.
Oh, I'm happy to help out any way I can. That sounds like a lot of really interesting stuff you're about to do. All right. Any final thoughts that you want to share? Any hopes, dreams, wishes, concerns?
And I know this sounds like an odd time to talk about the experience of awe, but it is what I have talking to people about, because awe is a solitary experience, which sort of fits our need right now. It's something that happens to ourselves, by ourselves. It then often invites us to want to share that with somebody else, but in its first form, it's an individual experience. And moments of awe are all around us. Nature, art, and music are predictably activating of these moments of awe. And so what I've been talking to people about is creating awe moments. So go and look out your window, or if you don't have nature out your window, you can find it online. Art online, music. Find that piece of music that moves your system into a moment of awe. And awe is the sense of being small but connected to something much larger. And we need that in our worlds right now. We all feel like we're this one little silo. We need to remember we are connected as a human race, and we are connected to something much bigger. So I'm going to leave that as my ending, to really experience all.
No, we all have nature. We can all step outside and look at the sky. And for me, I've noticed my appreciation for looking upward and just looking and appreciating. I love looking at clouds. And I feel that moment or that awe, and I feel so small. And that's an easy way. People can do that. They can look up, or look down at dirt,
Exactly. Down at the ground.
Be in the moment,
beautiful. Yeah. So that's my invitation for everybody to find a moment of awe.
Alrighty. Okay, well, thank you for coming back again. You're always welcome. Hopefully I'm sure there'll be a third book at some point and have you come back on, but you're always welcome to come back, all right?
Lovely. It's been a fun time this morning. Thanks for connecting, because it's really felt like a nice break from all of the solitude that we were having.
You said it.
Yes.
Yes, you said it.
Take care.
All right, Dad. Bye.
Bye-bye.